Hello and welcome to the 89th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad, and I'm joined by my brother Rob.
Number 9 was this episode we're on?
89, yes.
89.
Yeah, we're recording this on 9909, so a lot of nines falling into place.
Yep.
By the way, have you noticed that there are not one but two movies called Nine coming out this year?
I didn't notice there were two. I knew about the one.
Yeah, the CG one.
Yeah, with Coheed and Cambria, and it's like a 60 frame a second movie.
Yeah, it's a cinema scene.
It really looks like it's a real-time cinema. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I may still check it out, but...
And it's totally not from Tim Burton. The commercial flashes the word Tim Burton so fast, you're like, what was that? And it's like executive producer. It's like, oh, the guy that bought a donut for the crew or whatever.
Exactly. Tim Burton drove by.
But no, there's another movie spelled Nine that has Daniel Day-Lewis from There Will Be Blood.
Really?
Nicole Kidman. It's like a big all-star cast. It looks kind of like a Moulin Rouge kind of thing. So I'm like, apparently nines are falling out of every place. Anyway, so that's crazy. But hey...
Hey!
Have you been watching the U.S. Open?
No, I have not, because tennis is boring.
Yeah. Well, my wife likes tennis, and I don't normally follow it, but I just had to tell you about a mildly amusing commentary fail that happened. You got John McEnroe basically commentating, and then you got this older guy, and they had to do like the website announcement where they talk about like, visit our Facebook and all that stuff. Yes. And the older guy was like, visit usopen.org. And then you could tell he was just reading this, and he had never heard these words before. And he goes, download our iPhone app. It was like he had froze at the sight of a word he didn't know.
That's
right. So he just decided to spell it.
Download our iPhone app.
Anyway, that happened. You had a Rock Band related story, though.
Well, no, I mean, we're gearing up. Our Rock Band review for Beatles is coming up next week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Beatles Rock Band.
Yes. And so managed to snag one, and that was the only one there was to snag.
Right, and you're buying the hardware as well, right?
Right. I got the special edition that came with the drums, came with Paul McCartney's bass replica, and everything like that. So, more details to come on that. So far, though, it's looking good.
John Lennon's urn replica. But, so more details on that to
Marxists,
come, yes.
Read literature. You can
read
over.
Heath Ledger's Joker pants. I don't know where that's coming from.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
very morbid game now.
Weird.
It's like a turn for the worst.
Not as morbid as Guitar Hero 5's dead Kurt Cobain mannequin.
What?
/ Matthew Bellamy. I don't know if you've seen the animated Matthew Bellamy corpse.
No, I have not.
He is not even dead. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
it's weird. You can make Kurt Cobain sing Blink-182.
Oh my goodness. No. And just to show like the extra kind of bad sauce that is Guitar Hero 5, the commercial, it's like, well, what's the Beatles have? Well, they can basically just say it's Beatles, it's a game, and everybody will buy it. But they're like, okay, how does Guitar Hero counteract? Let's do another risky business parody, and this time it's gonna be them Playboy girls and Hugh Hefner all joining together because Playboy is gonna do the only thing better than the Beatles.
Well, that last guy, that model that they got, had never heard of a video game. I will say he had no clue how to act like he was playing it.
If you get a chance, YouTube or search whatever for Guitar Hero Beatles.
Yeah.
It's a parody making of, like, if Guitar Hero were to do the Beatles. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we have 87 songs in the game.
Right.
15 are from the Beatles. Well, actually, 10 are from the Beatles. 5 are cover versions from popular bands.
Yeah.
And the rest are bands that influenced the Beatles, like Linkin Park.
Right.
And,
that's awesome. Oh, yeah. Well, we talk crap about Guitar Hero, but, I mean, 5 does look like it has better graphics, and the Matthew Bellamy thing is totally sanctioned. I mean, he's on interview saying, how cool it was to work with them.
And to be honest, I mean, Plug-in Baby, the chance to play that, WoW, and their hardware is still red octane, and they do a great job. Yes. So sometimes it's worth it just to get, get an extra guitar, and while you're at it, it comes with a game.
So that is not what we're here to talk about, but that was a good conversation. Thank you.
Yep.
So let's move into some geek news. Every week we bring you our favorite geeky news stories, and this week, Rob, what was your favoritist?
Apple announced the tablet and the Beatles on iTunes.
Yes! No, that didn't happen.
Nothing close to that happened.
Steve Jobs announced his organs.
Steve Jobs announced that he has a liver. And
wouldn't that be great if that was the biggest announcement?
Yeah, it's exactly. Well, it got standing ovation, so he's still good at it.
The eye liver?
The eye liver.
Sorry, that's lame.
Because he lives.
That's lame. No, he's the eye liver. Like he lives.
Exactly.
That's stupid. Sorry, let's continue.
All right, here's what's going on. We got a new iPod Nano.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the biggest announcement in terms of like, wow, this is different, because now there's a built-in video camera.
Yes.
On the iPod Nano. Now,
finally,
Steve Jobs pulled a little trick here that I just want to call shenanigans on and be like, okay, no.
Right.
He's like, we're competing with these flip phones, or not the flip video player.
Right.
They sell theirs at 4 gigabytes for $500. Ours is going to be 8 gigabytes and free.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, no, it's not, because
it's not free.
You still have to buy the new iPod, and if you have an old iPod, it's not going to grow on there.
Yeah. I saw that free slide, and I was like, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, it's not at all cool. But, yeah, so the iPod's getting a video camera, a speaker, a microphone, also a pedometer, so that you can upload things on the Nike's website and just, know how you're doing. But I thought that was an interesting touch.
Yeah, no, that's actually, that's useful.
Yeah, but I felt the same kind of like enthusiasm as when Nintendo announced their little pulse checker attachment for the Wii. Not really like, yes!
Yeah, one guy, yes!
Finally!
No, and I have to say, I was a little down on the iTunes announcement because I heard they were adding new features into iTunes, and at this point, iTunes is such a bloated beast to me that I don't want any more features in that program. Or otherwise rename it something that doesn't have tunes, because it's doing like your accounting now, But you were actually saying you thought the features were cool.
Yeah, I thought
so. Why don't you go into iTunes 9?
These are cool features. I mean, personally, I've been waiting for stuff like this. Kind of album view. It's called iTunes LP.
Right.
And the idea is, well, with digital music downloads, we've lost this whole kind of LP experience where we have album art and paging through books and have like artist content. So what they do now is with certain artists who elect to go this far, they can have basically their own sort of page on iTunes that, like they have the Doors and Dave Matthews and stuff like that, and you can see, a new page for each song that kind of has the lyrics, and you can choose to play it from there. You can look at video, like making of stuff. And essentially it's all part of one big thing that they're also doing with movies, which is, they're adding special features now to their downloaded movies. So it's kind of like the DVD experience.
Right.
Where you have trailers, you have making of, you have commentary.
Right.
And it's now all being wrapped up and put into the iTunes store. So the point here is making that transition from the old media to the new one without losing any sort of experiences.
Now,
are the more feasible.
Yeah, are the movie features exclusive to iTunes, or are they the same features found on the DVD, but just you can finally use them?
Right now, it's only a select few movies, but I'm sure that basically what's going to happen is everybody will be like, okay, let's go back and just digitize all these special features and slap them into iTunes.
Right. But I could see them, announcing exclusives at some point as a way of tying people into iTunes. It's like, get The Dark Knight with an extra scene on iTunes only, I mean, for them, that's probably why they're doing this. And the album art, too. It's like the Dave Matthews thing is only an iTunes thing.
Right.
You know what, actually, a good application for that would be the Might Be Giants Bed, Bed, Bed album.
Yeah.
Because it had a book included, and I could and the book has the lyrics to the songs. It's actually pretty appropriate for something like that.
I could see They Might Be Giants going crazy with something like this, because you can have animation. You can have like a guy, you push his head, and he goes, what?
Yeah, they totally have those for like their No album and things. They had the website, equivalent. Very cool. So that is the Apple announcements. Anything else that caught your fancy?
iPod Touch is cheaper. That's about it.
Well, no, that actually factors into my news story, which I'll go ahead and announce. I'll announce. What the heck am I doing?
Exclusive here today, folks.
Exclusive. My favorite thing of the week. My favorite story was the Palm Pixi which is sort of a version of the Palm Pre, only it has the keyboard on the outside. Gizmodo got a hands-on with it, and I was reading that, and I was actually getting pretty excited because the Pre, for all of its coolness, and I've used yours, I find the keyboard to be a bit tight, and this one, by having it on the outside, it's actually the same sized keyboard, but because it doesn't have to clear anything to slide out, it has raised keys, like much more raised. And so they say that the feel of it is much better, the typing is easier, and the only downside of this is sort of being targeted as a cheaper or like a poor man's Palm Pre.
Yeah.
So there's no Wi-Fi, but as the cell phone service becomes our pretty much main way of getting online on the go, I don't think I mind that so much. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it's a tough call. I personally think the Wi-Fi is a pretty big loss because a lot of what I'm hearing going on with 4G and what's referred to as WiMAX, Clearwire, stuff like that, usually is dependent on Wi-Fi technology and kind of using that receiver to deliver content. And so if this is just a 3G phone, it's only going to last so long,
Yeah, interesting. It's a think about how which way that's going to go. I foresee eventually that all major cities would have, open Wi-Fi, just by living in the city.
Right.
But I still think we'll need to use the cell phone service for things. I don't know. It'll be curious to see.
Yeah. No, the Pixi is cool though. I mean, if it's cheap, because
talk about the price drop. You said that Palm sort of fired back at Apple a little bit with a price drop of their own.
Yeah, the Pre is down now, incredibly cheap. It now has a $150 instant rebate. In the end, you end up only paying $150 for the Palm Pre, which means that the Pixi would have to at least be $100 for it to justify being a poor man's.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think they have an exact price yet, but it's probably going to be in that range. And if Verizon, I'm on Verizon right now, if Verizon doesn't get the iPhone, if they get the Pixi, that would be pretty tempting to me. The only thing missing at that point would be the App Store, which is a big deal. But if the keyboard feels good, that takes away my other criticism, so I'd be good to go.
Yeah, but that App Store is brimming. There's new apps coming out every week. And just slowly and steadily, they're testing it. They just updated it to Palm OS 1.2, which is pretty substantial. And we'll see. It's ready to go.
Yeah. Well, plus any phone that you buy, you're going to replace it in 2 years whenever they do the trade in. As long as it has enough to last 2 years, that to me is a good thing. So
and don't forget, you could always go the route of just getting a bare bones phone. And then get yourself an iPod Touch, which already has all the application support.
That's true, yeah. Well, they were definitely pushing the Touch. And I've used my friend Dan's Touch, and his iPod Touch. And it actually, when you're in a house with Wi-Fi, it's pretty much the same functionality.
Right.
And it feels thinner to me, so that's cool.
Yeah. As far as the Pre goes, I love using Pandora. And I love using Pandora wherever I am.
Yes.
And I love using Pandora in conjunction with whatever else I'm doing.
Yes.
On the phone, which is something that the iPhone and especially the iPod Touch isn't going to have because it runs only things one at a time.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my favorite news story. And then I just wanted to real quickly say that Bonk's Adventure, this is maybe exciting to no one but us, but Bonk's Adventure is returning. I can say woohoo! Hudson. By the way, is Hudson still around? I guess.
Yeah. They made Bomberman.
Oh, sweet. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So Hudson is bringing out a new Bonk's Adventure. It's a sequel called Brink of Extinction. The description is basically a doomsday comet surrounded by small chunks of debris is on a collision course for Earth. And Bonk must undertake a perilous journey. For those who don't know, Bonk is a large-headed caveman who bangs his head off of stuff. From the TurboGrafx 16, which we've talked about before, he was basically the closest thing they had to a mascot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and Keith Courage.
Yeah, it's not animated. It's not the original game. It's a side-scroller, but it's like a la Shadow Complex. It's fully, it's 3D graphics.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel. I like the whimsical cartoon sort of. It had that kind of gross 90s, Ren and Stimpy appeal.
Yeah, he would burp and his tongue would fly out,
Yeah, his huge teeth as he climbs He would scale walls with his teeth.
Pretty much, yeah.
And they would just like jam out. And speaking of, this 2D renaissance we're going through, there was a teaser trailer that just came out for the new Sonic game. It shows absolutely nothing except for that it's going to be fast and it's going to be in 2D.
Okay.
So
I like the 2D. Not sure if I like the fast. Go ahead.
No, come on. That's Sonic. Sonic is fast, and it can only be fast in 2D.
Well, I respect your opinion, but if I may, Sonic is a platformer that generally moves at a slow pace, and then occasionally Sonic goes fast. If you look at the old ones, the good ones.
Really?
In these new games, he's blasting at the speed of light. It's something that humans can't control. So they just can't do it. Their reflexes aren't fast enough. And they make you do this as if that's what you crave, and they keep pumping up the speed. And obviously he had speed. His name was Sonic. But it was a platformer. I mean, come on, dude. You remember, you swim, you grab rings, you do things, and then occasionally do a speed burst. But during that period, you're not even controlling it. You're just watching him fly, and then you'll stop and do some more platforming,
We'll see. If it was up to me, I'd get like racing game developers to help develop Sonic. Have it kind of on rails, Don't have it possible that he can fall and die. Just really just have things set for speed.
So you're really into the speed thing for Sonic. You think that's...
Well, no, because I don't think they pull it off right, because I don't think they... What you're complaining about is that it doesn't control well.
Right.
And that's a whole different issue. You want to give the feeling of moving fast, of having this extremely fast character and who's powerful for that. But if you just go really fast into a spike and die, that's not fun. So what's fun is the kind of burnout feeling, like, oh my goodness, I'm going so fast.
Yeah. Well, and certainly I want that, but I want that in limited chunks. Because, again, my favorite memories of Sonic, like Sonic CD, were traveling forward or backward in time, seeing the futuristic version of like the casino level, and then seeing the caveman version, and exploring this huge level, but doing it mostly by jumping, and grabbing things and doing this and that, and then occasionally going fast. But I really think people remember that game as just flying at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it was a competent platformer too. I mean, that's the part that seems to get left out to me.
We'll see. So, I'm hesitant to get excited about Sonic, but I'm still so hoping to get excited about a returning Sonic game where it actually reclaims his past, because that series has just been completely raped.
Absolutely. I just keep giving Sonic more and more chances.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the right one. But let's move on now to our main topic of discussion, which this week is a movie called Extract. This is the new movie from Mike Judge, who is the creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. And if you're into movies, Office Space, and what I think is underrated Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Hey, how about that?
It's a good movie. It is.
Yes. So the plot of Extract is basically about an extract plant that makes vanilla extract, etc. And Jason Bateman plays the sort of owner-manager of said plant. And he's good at his job, but at home he's kind of sexually frustrated. Him and his wife are kind of moving into like just sort of a boring period in their marriage, and he consults his hippie friend, who is played by Ben Affleck, with long hair and sort of dirty long hair and a goatee. And Ben Affleck and him come up with a plan, which I won't reveal to spoil the movie, but to try to change things around. And my question for you is, does hilarity ensue?
Yeah. From time to time.
There it is, folks.
So you're asking me, did I like this movie?
Well, it's a comedy. Did you think it was funny? I mean...
Well, yeah. No, yeah. There were definitely funny moments. Like, it's a good comedy. It's not the greatest comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I try and pinpoint what the problems I had with this movie were, it all goes back to Robert McKee.
Okay. He's the author of a book on screenwriting, just for the audience there.
Exactly. And you probably know more about it than I did because you really read the book, and most of this is from what I've heard you telling me about
go ahead, yeah.
But first thing that I don't think this movie does well, it doesn't know who its audience is. You know? Was this a movie intended to be, like appealing to college kids? Like, because college is getting back in, and now they're all together. Let's all go out and see a movie.
Right.
And if that's the case, this really isn't kind of...
It's not their experience. I mean, it's like a couple years into married life, working at an extract plant.
Right, that kind of thing. So I guess, is it for older people? But then why are like things getting kind of weirdly vulgar? Or,
there's like crotch jokes and getting high jokes.
Exactly. Like, there's stuff like that, which is for like the college crowd, but then again, it's fidelity and lawsuits and...
Yeah, Gene Simmons plays a lawyer, which was an unexpected cameo.
Well, they actually cast that because they said every time they were thinking of the lawyer character, they were basically imagining Gene Simmons. So when it came to casting him, they're like, why don't we just cast Gene Simmons?
Yeah, and he did a half-decent job.
He did.
It does feel odd, like uneven.
Right.
If I could say it that way.
I think it needed to go through a few more rewrites before being made. Because there's so much stuff going on, but none of it seems to have anything to do with the other thing.
I kind of agree with you. I definitely feel this is wasted potential. Mike Judge is awesome. I mean, all the things I named before, I would recommend checking out. I mean, Office Space is one of the all-time best comedies, in my opinion. And yeah, he doesn't have to reclaim that level, but he's a good writer. He should have done better than this, in my opinion. God, this sounds so harsh to say because I'm not any kind of writer. I've read a book on screenwriting. That doesn't make me an expert. But just from an audience standpoint, I didn't laugh very much. It had a few giggles, and then there was maybe one or two laughs. But you're also talking about Jason Bateman and Ben Affleck. I mean, good actors. And Jason Bateman, I think, is one of the best comedy actors right now. And his delivery is normally so hilarious, but in this movie, they both seemed kind of sleepy, maybe, if I could say it that way. Like, there's lines that take a while to get going and jokes that fall flat, and they don't seem to know that they're not working, So you just sort of wait through some of these odd scenes, and I almost feel like the trailer's editing was more appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously trailers can always accelerate and excite a lot faster than a movie can as far as pacing. But,
right.
I know what you mean. This is definitely kind of taking a page from the King of the Hill sort of pace of things. And maybe, that's what you get when you go to see, a Mike Judge film.
I know what you mean about King of the Hill because, that show is very mellow. And it's amusing, and I get that it's funny, but it is, you watch it, and it's not guffaws, the characters don't act insane. They don't act exaggerated. And I almost wish that they would have exaggerated the people better. In this movie, his neighbor, who is the guy from Anchorman, it was actually, I thought, one of the funniest characters because he's the most outlandish character. And I don't know if Office Space just had more outlandish characters. Everybody does impressions of the boss and Peter and all these different characters, but this movie they just sort of acted straightforward. Ben Affleck was a hippie with long, dirty hair, but he pretty much just acts like Ben Affleck. Nothing about him seemed that...
I kind of disagree. I think, as far as he goes, he didn't seem like Ben Affleck at all. He was unrecognizable as being Ben Affleck. I probably enjoyed his character the most, just from a comedy standpoint. Mm-hmm. And just his whole kind of, nonsense and philosophy and being a drug guy and just... He's definitely the oddball character.
Yeah. But don't you feel like he could have gone a little further with it? I don't know. I did appreciate his use of ancient times.
Right.
When he described the drugs that he was giving him. These are from ancient times. There was some good stuff. And I also liked his boss's use of Dinkus and Boy Genius as nicknames for the employees.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff there. But however, and I'm going to go back to McKee. The last thing I feel like this movie really doesn't do well, wow them in the end.
Yeah.
What on earth does this movie wrap up with? I don't want to spoil it, but it's just okay, if I'm following the story arc correctly, here's what it begins with is this person.
Right.
And then halfway through, we're introduced to this kind of storyline. And they run parallel to each other without ever really having anything to do with each other.
Right.
And then one ends, which seemed big, but that's not the end.
Right.
Then there's another thing that just kind of happens, and it's all right.
Right.
That resolved, and it leads to almost resolving a kind of major story, but that never actually gets resolved.
Yeah.
And then there's this other one that you thought was one way and not...
Yeah.
See, what I'm getting at is there's never a moment kind of I was thinking of, Tommy Boy.
Right.
Where it's all about saving this company.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
And how, like, that movie did that so well. And when they save the company, you want to cheer with them. You're like, yeah, you know, like, that happened.
No, yeah, the triumphs in this movie are just sort of a mellow kind of... It's like,
and it's
all
like,
right.
Everybody gather around. All right. It's the end.
Well, like you say, like, the resolution of the relationship plot line ends up being... like farted out as well, like kind of like, well, I don't know what's. It's like it has the arc of a traditional romantic comedy / like Saving the Factory movie, but then decides to like shake it up, you know, in a few weird ways that end up like making you feel weird because you expected the typical arc.
Yeah,
you know, that's too bad. What's really too bad is Mike Judge actually shows up toward the end of this movie as one of the characters. He's the guy with the mustache in the factory. Most people recognize him too. He's in Office Space as the TGI Fridays manager, or whatever the equivalent was called, like Flamers or Flingers or what. And I was looking at him and I'm just like, darn it, like I want your movie to be better. I so wish that this was as funny as I was hoping, but I felt bad for him because I'm like, here he is. He thinks this is funny, and yet I don't know. I was disappointed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up with what my girlfriend said. Her review of the movie is. It's a good movie for a Tuesday night.
I like that. Well, why don't we end it on that? Because I think that works out pretty well. I've never seen the 5-day week rating system, but that actually could be pretty awesome if you think about it. Because it has all the like a Monday. I don't know what a Monday movie would be, but
I think a Sunday movie is probably the lowest. It just ends up playing seemingly all day on television.
Yeah. Well, like the Friday night movie needs to be like a bang up, you know, really awesome. You know, lots of jokes or lots of action, and then like the Sunday movie afternoon can be like a documentary about Hitler or something. You know?
Oh no,
I don't know. Well, awesome.
Yes.
Not that Hitler was awesome, but your girlfriend's comment was awesome. Unfortunately, Extract I don't think is awesome, so I would have to say avoid it.
I think it could work as a rental. It has enough good stuff in there, and the performances are actually good. I'll say this: no real shame for a lot of the actors involved in this, but
no
just
shame.
As far as how it all came together, I just think it kind of fell flat. So
yeah, unfortunately,
rent it, whatever.
There you go. So that is Extract, and moving on to our nostalgia segment now. We always like to reminisce about growing up geek at the end of the show, and you know, this week PAX is going on, and Ron Gilbert did the keynote speech. Ron Gilbert was the creator of Monkey Island, and he went through this like list of computers that he had used in the past that was just like insane, like every like, you know, Commodore and, you know, Amiga and Atari and all these different things. And I started to think about the technology graveyard, and I wanted to bring up this is the worst segue ever, but I wanted to bring up the Atari Lynx.
Oh man!
If we could reach back, I know that I'm sure you didn't see where I was going with all that. It's like,
yeah, okay. No idea.
Just on the subject of old technology, the Atari Lynx is something we owned. Mm-hmm. Speak about the Lynx, if you would. I know you you enjoyed it. It's a portable.
Portable is loosely used. It was one of the first color portable game systems, and it was by Atari.
Yes.
And this is at a time when Atari was kind of, you know, on the downside, but still trying to play the hardware game.
Right. Well, you mentioned that portable is a loose term. I assume you're referring to its massive size.
It was gigantic. Like, I remember Matt or maybe you came back, like, you saw it at Toys R Us, and you just were, like, downtrodden. You're just like, I'm sorry, but I saw the thing. It was, like, the size of a skateboard.
Yeah. You know? Well, Jason told me that they did product testing for this thing, and that it was originally smaller, and that people wanted it larger. And I can't imagine how that's true. But he actually owns a smaller version, too, because they revamped the thing later.
Right, I had the smaller one. Whenever I finally bought it, it was a smallish version. It sort of had 4 buttons, but not really. You know,
it had a lefty and a righty, right?
Exactly. You could flip it upside down, and the buttons were... The 4 buttons were actually a redundant 2 buttons, you know?
Right.
So you couldn't use like a 4-button thing. But I had Rampart for it, and I had Toki. 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 Right.
Yeah. I think, did we also have a Batman game?
I think we maybe did.
I thought we did, but I wanted to speak about Rampart for a second.
Yeah.
Again, I was talking to Jason about this, and he owns all the old consoles. But he was saying that Rampart was one of the best games, and I told him I enjoyed it for the cinema scene at the beginning because it sort of, Lynx was a color gaming portable system in the era of green screened Game Boy.
Yeah.
So when that cinema played at the beginning and it was like full motion video and it was color, I was like, oh yeah, like I enjoy things that show off the power of my new technology.
Yeah.
Even if they're not that fun. Fortunately, Rampart actually was good. It was like a strategy type game.
Yeah, you're always attracted to the tech demos, essentially. Like, if you got a new system and all you had was a tech demo, you'd be satisfied.
Well, yeah, because it means that I'm not a complete fraud. Like, I did buy something half decent,
Right.
Do you remember Toki? I don't remember quite.
Yeah, I do. I mean, you were a monkey man, or your girlfriend is stolen. You're a caveman. And so the sorcerer curses you and turns you into a monkey with a giant head. But you can shoot blue fireballs out of your mouth. And that was the awesome point. That was the selling point. You push the button and he shoots blue pellets from his mouth.
Right.
Back then, that's all you needed to distinguish a game.
Well, what's the PlayStation game that's just like that with the caveman dude with the pink hair? What's that one? I sold that to that kid at GameStop. Crap, I really want to remember that now. But yeah, it's Tomba. Sorry, Tomba.
Tomba
is a very similar thing where you're a purple-haired caveman. So I guess that's a whole genre.
Yeah,
caveman platformers. Well, Bonk's Adventure, for God's sake.
Well, remember, Caveman Ninjas? No. You don't remember Caveman Ninjas?
No, what's that?
That was an arcade game that you played as cavemen. They were ninjas. And you fought dinosaurs.
I got it from the title. Yeah. Should they bring this genre back? The caveman.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Bonk is going to attempt to.
The 80s were big with cavemen because long hair was big back then, and so was Neanderthal and all that stuff. So.
You know what? Neanderthal, the tallest of all Neanderthals.
Exactly, Neanderthal.
No,
Neanderthal.
Dude, you're totally. I just realized this because Encino Man.
Yeah,
you're totally right.
And whenever ninjas were also popular, they made caveman ninjas.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say, ninjas and pirates continue to be this thing. And now zombies. Well, I shouldn't say now. It's been going on since the 60s.
Zombies. Right now, what's going on is vampires are taking off in a huge way.
No. Sexy vampires.
Sexy vampires.
Because vampires, when we were kids, would kill people.
Yeah,
and now they make sweet love to you or something to a Nickelback soundtrack.
There's no downside to being a vampire. I'm sorry, we're getting off topic, but what the heck? Why don't I want to join the ranks of the undead?
No, you know what? Best photoshopped image I've ever seen on Dig was it's called How Twilight Should Have Ended. It was just the kids from Twilight staring at each other, and in the background was Wesley Snipes.
Nice.
Standing there with his axe or whatever. And I was like, yes. Because vampires should be killed instantly. I'm sorry. That's the best part about that movie is when the bloodbath pours down and he's just like, he runs in. And I remember just feeling how awesome it was that he indiscriminately kills all vampires in that room.
Are these attractive vampires? No, I'm not going to kill them.
Yeah, no, it was instant. You have to kill a vampire because they will mess you up. I don't know. That needs to come back. So yeah, no, you're right. Vampires are big. Zombies are big.
That's right.
But maybe it's time for the return of the caveman. Imagine the caveman romance movie that eventually develops.
Atari Lynx.
Atari Lynx was a portable system that existed.
Terrible system. Used 8 billion batteries in 1 second.
That's true. It did. God, you remember the time I hit your head accidentally with my wireless keyboard and like 1 million batteries and like parts of your head went flying in all directions,
and we had to figure out which ones were which.
Yeah, it was like it did look like batteries shot out of your head.
Yep.
Anyway, so if you grew up geek like we did, and you hit each other with battery-filled devices, then send us an email. And you know what? I'm not going to give the web address this week. I'm going to say to slap your hands against the keyboard like I do, something resembling Growing Up Geek. Slap it into Google. You'll find our website and click on our email link. That's about the easiest way I could say it. And send us an email. We'd love to read it on the show. And if you want to follow Rob throughout the week on Twitter, and you can do that at twitter.com/GUGRob. And for this week, once again, my name is Brad.
I'm going to go play some more Rock Band Beatles.
And we'll see you next week.
You gonna buy the same old game, boy?
Atari Lynx, the portable video arcade. With the biggest screen for full-color attraction, stereo sound and 16-bit action, and more games for total satisfaction. Lynx will blow you away. Lynx, more fun and games from Atari.